Hi there, April. Yes, Beth, that is me. I was getting out of the shower when my phone rang. I had no time to punch the answering machine, even though I wanted to. April, what's the problem? On your answering machine, you came across as really desperate. After my recent shopping trip, I decided to give you a call. What is the issue? I did a stupid thing, and when I tell Dave about it, he'll divorce me. What's wrong, April? I slept with Brad tonight. God, I feel awful. He invited me to dinner when I danced with him at the reunion last night, and for some ungodly reason, I went. Then we went to his room and had sex. When I tell Dave, I know he'll want a divorce. I don't know what to do, she was crying. God, April, don't tell Dave. He doesn't need to know. You made a big mistake. Isn't Brad back in New York today? Yeah, but I hate myself. Brad went home after we had sex. I love my husband, I really do. It's just, Brad was my first, and I was thinking about old times, and I really screwed up. Now I'm going to lose Dave. Look, April, you made a mistake, a big mistake. It's over. Brad lives in New York, he's married too, so he's not going to brag about it. Let it go. Be the best wife and mother you can be. Don't deny David anything and make love to him all the time. You will have to live with the fact that you cheated on your husband. Don't lose him and your marriage over a big mistake. You're right, Beth. That wasn't so good either. David is a much better lover than Brad. I think I'll take your advice. I'll just have to live with it. 10 years ago, we had this phone conversation. Our answering machine was one of those that rings 4 times before leaving a message, and we still have one. The conversation is recorded if you answer while the other person is still on the line. That's precisely what occurred with April. That's exactly what I heard when I turned on the message when I walked in after she left to go to the store. I was utterly perplexed. I didn't know what to do. My stunning spouse, who is also the mother of my 3-year-old daughter, had an affair with her former partner. I had no idea what to do. That was when I had to make a decision. So, I took the tape away and put a new one in the machine. I dug into the laundry basket and discovered the pink underwear she had on earlier that day. There was still some moisture in the stains. I hid the tape and the underwear in the basement and put them in a bag. I was going to keep them in case I needed them as proof. Permit me to briefly describe our lives to you. Brad, Beth, April, and I all attended the same high school. Everyone knew Brad and April as a couple up until April caught Brad cuddling and kissing Mary Lou. She yelled at Brad and told him she never wanted to see him again when she saw them. He attempted, of course, to persuade her to return to him, but she consistently refused. I started dating April at that point. She may have started out wanting to get even with Brad, but in the end, I think she fell in love with me. I liked her all through high school, of course, but with Brad around, I just didn't have a chance. Brad's success was noted in the yearbook as highly probable. He played baseball and was an athlete in soccer. April was called the class's prettiest girl and Miss Congeniality. I too was given the name MacGyver. I got the nickname MacGyver from a television show where the protagonist was able to mend or fix anything. Although I didn't look as good as the original MacGyver, I did look like him. I was even dubbed McDave by some friends. April didn't want to spend much time with Brad, even though they were prom queen and king. Actually, he took Mary Lou, and she was my date. I must pause for a moment to tell you about Mary Lou. She had large breasts and was stunning. I was one of the guys who knew guys who squeezed Mary Lou's breasts. Here's a surprise, Mary Lou entered a convent following her high school graduation. She's now a nun, named Sister Mary Lou, I swear to God. Brad left after high school to attend a university in New York. His goal was to practice law. He desired to remain in New York and practice law in the Big Apple following his time in college. April attended a community college where she studied secretarial techniques. I attended school to pursue a career in automotive repair as a mechanic. Everybody received what they wished for. April and I fell in love after college. Together, we completed every task. She became pregnant after we were married. We were very happy. We named our newborn daughter Carly. She was our little delight, of course. I started my own auto repair business. I hired 2 guys because I literally had more work than I could complete in a reasonable amount of time. In those days, people wanted their cars repaired quickly, and we prided ourselves on our full-service shop. To make sure I could finish the work when it was due, I even opened for half days on the weekends. Life was pleasant. Everything was excellent. My folks were quite pleased with me. April's parents would have preferred that April wait until Brad returned, even though they thought I was adorable and a good provider. You cannot win over everyone's opinion. That was my philosophy. I made a sincere effort to be a decent father and husband. The reunion after 5 years was drawing near. I didn't want to go, although I wouldn't mind seeing how a few of the girls I had met were doing. I'd seen many of them when they brought their cars in for repairs. We had a class of good-looking women. Of course, April retained her beauty and personality. We went to the reunion because she was very eager to attend. April looked great, though she always looked good. I think she dressed a little sexier for her old classmates, including Brad. When I told her how good she looked, she replied that she needed to maintain her title of prettiest. She also said that she dressed for me. Of course, I replied, yes, of course. We got to the reunion, and Brad came running over to say hi to us. He didn't care about me, all he wanted was to see April. Asking him where his wife was, I shook his hand. He said she couldn't make it and was running their office until he returned Sunday night. Prior to their marriage, she worked as his secretary and assured him that she would continue to do so. I had a feeling she was the family member who always wore the pants. I danced with a couple of the girls and spoke with every student in the class. I noticed that April was dancing with Brad every time I went out on the dance floor. I became slightly enraged by it. She began dancing with her classmates after I told her about it. We ended the reunion by dancing the last few dances together. Some of the class said they wanted to meet for lunch the next day before those who were traveling went home. I informed them that I had some cars to fix in the morning, so I couldn't make it. If April could convince her mother to watch the infant, she would make an effort to attend. April had never done anything to cause me to doubt her. So much as I wanted to object, it would only make me look bad. Leaving April in bed, I got up early and went to the store. I had an earlier than usual workday. I arrived home at around 5 o'clock in the evening. April had left a note on the table informing us that she would be picking up our daughter. I heard the answering machine beep and noticed it blinking. April said her mom would watch Carly overnight so we could spend time together alone when she got home. Entering the bedroom, she lavished me with passionate kisses. She explained that she wanted to show me how much she loved and cared for me when I asked her why. That, I suppose, was the start of the grief I was to experience. I don't know if I did the right thing by not telling her that I knew about the affair. I thought she was really sorry, and I loved the way she made love to me. That night, we most likely made more love together than we had throughout our marriage. That night, it continued. She took care of my morning boner the following morning. I had to let my guys know that I might be running a little late by calling the store. She was always good, and life was better than usual. She seemed genuinely interested in making up to me for something that I was completely unaware of. Because of all the sex we were having, she ultimately became pregnant. Life was pleasant. We named our second child, Danny, after me. She is a girl. David Daniel Moore is my name. Danny grew to be my little love over time. Carly was always in the kitchen or somewhere else with her mother. Danny had always wanted to accompany me to the garage. I tried to take her with me as much as possible. I had a small apartment above the garage where I could unwind or even nap because I didn't want her in there too much. I could take a shower there instead of returning home smelling and looking like a grease monkey because it also had a kitchen and a bathroom. Whenever I could, I would take Danny there to play games. She desired quality time with her father, and I reciprocated her desire for quality time. We took the girls on all our travels. We took them to the theme parks because they were big fans and wanted to spend the entire day riding. Carly wanted to ride rides with her mother, and Danny wanted to ride rides with me, of course. I really did love my family. I nearly wish the cheating had never come to light. It would have been the ideal life. Time for our 10-year reunion had come. I was genuinely reluctant to go. If Brad turned up, I was scared of what I could do to him. For the previous 5 years, my life had been good, and I didn't want it to get any worse. When I asked April if she would like to come, she replied that she is not interested. I felt content. I got us tickets to Kings Island Amusement Park, just in case friends called to talk April out of it. For a 2-night stay, I made sure we wouldn't be available for guests by renting motel rooms for us. I could tell that April was still trying, even though it was a lot of work for her. At the park, we had a fantastic time. Once more, my girls adored it, and April was the most affectionate person ever. She was ready for sex as soon as the other girls at the motel went to bed. It was a quiet night of lovemaking. It was great to watch April try to be quiet while experiencing an orgasm. Both girls were enrolled in school at the time, and April took a part-time job as an office assistant at the school. I was one lucky guy. In her free time, she could then be there for the girls. My company was expanding as well, so I added 2 more staff members. Life was pleasant. In order to save the parents from having to find donors in the event of a problem, the school offered DNA testing to all students. The worst-case situation, which no one wanted to discuss, was that it would be possible to identify a missing child. We put Danny and Carrie to the test. 3 weeks later, we were to pick up the results at the doctor's office. April asked if I could get by the doctor and pick up the results since she had to work at school that day. It was easy for me to say yes. The doctor informed me of their findings as soon as I entered the office. Considering that the girls were only half-sisters, he said he was shocked at how similar they looked. My thoughts became empty. Upon inquiring about my well-being, the doctor said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. I didn't know." I was curious as to what he meant by half-sisters. "Doc, are you saying they have 2 different fathers?" Oh my God, I couldn't believe this was happening to me. "I'm sorry, David. I shouldn't have said anything. The test showed that one parent is different in every test." "Doc, can you give me a test? I need to know for sure." "I'm pretty sure, but I need the results of the test." With reluctance, the doctor took my blood. He promised to work quickly to return the results within a week. He expressed his regret and apologized to me once more. I looked him straight in the eye and replied, "Doc, I am not the biological father of one of my girls. I will tell you right now that they are both still my daughters, and I will love them equally. I am the only father they know, and if I find out that you have told anyone about this conversation, we will go in circles. Dave, my lips are sealed." I took the findings home with me. When April looked at them, all she could make of them was a collection of dots on a graph, unless she knew how to interpret them. I was fairly certain that she was unaware that one of our daughters wasn't biologically mine after she had looked at them. A week later, I returned and received the results. I was correct. Danny, my tiny bundle of joy, was not my biological daughter. It had to be an affair, I knew that much. I detested the damage she had caused to me. I hoped that nobody would ever discover. I had no intention of telling April. I was depressed for the next few weeks. I told April that I wasn't feeling well when she asked what was wrong. "Maybe I should see a doctor," she suggested. I informed her that I had taken a medication that should be helpful. Actually, I just finished nearly a pint of whiskey before going to bed. When I woke up the following morning, little Danny was asleep on my arm. After some time, I started to realize what was going on. Little Danny remained my favorite, and nothing had changed in the world around me. April remained as charming as ever. One day, Beth spoke with April over the phone. April informed me that Beth and her husband Mark were divorcing after their conversation. After 10 years of marriage, they were getting a divorce. It's because of irreconcilable differences, she said. Beth remained silent for a while. April and her secret, and me and my 2 secrets, lived on. Time for the 15-year reunion was upon us. Danny was 10 years old and Carly was 13. April stated that since she served on Beth's committee that year, Beth requested that she attend the reunion. If you plan to go, it would be difficult not to. Even though I really didn't want to leave, I knew that I couldn't let April go by herself. We attended the get-together. The peers appeared more mature. Since we had missed the previous reunion, we hadn't seen many of them in 10 years. Naturally, Brad turned up again without his wife. I told him, Brad, I'm tired of pretending. I don't like you and never have. I'm not going to shake your hand, and I don't expect you to spend the entire meeting with my wife, as he extended his hand for me to shake. April turned to face Brad and began apologizing on my behalf, saying, David, how could you talk so badly to Brad? God, I'm embarrassed. I simply walked away, disgusted, waving my hand. She approached me later and began to argue with me. How could you do that, David? Brad didn't do anything to deserve this. He always treated you with respect. All he wants is to spend the whole night next to you, and we both know it. If you want him that bad, here he is. Go get him, I finally said, just before I lost it and told her everything. April sobbed her way into the women's restroom. After hearing bits of the conversation, Beth took off after her. Perhaps I said too much. Perhaps I had had enough. I went to the bar and got my drink on. April returned soon after, announcing that she would be meeting up with some of her classmates. She was really avoiding Brad from what I could see when I watched her. She may have danced with him once during the evening. I was essentially the only person seated at the bar. I would occasionally approach someone and strike up a conversation. I needed assistance getting to my car from April after the meeting. After telling me how much I had embarrassed her, she silently lectured me. I went straight to bed after we got home. When the alarm went off, I was miserable. Even though it was Sunday, I kept my word to a few people that I would fix their cars. I got up and headed to my job. I was embarrassed by my behavior at the reunion and felt guilty while I worked. I was angry with April and hated Brad, but neither of us understood why. I gave a few guys at work a call. I was going to drive home and take the family out to dinner, even though it would require spending a few extra dollars because it was Sunday. I arrived home to find it deserted. It was afternoon, precisely 1 o'clock. I wound the answering machine back up, and it blinked. April must not have responded promptly once more, as I overheard the message. April said, "Hello. Hey girl, what are you up to?" It was Beth. "Hey Beth, just got out of the shower when I heard the phone ring." "What's wrong?" "Lunch. Do you want to come to lunch with a group of classmates?" "Who's coming, Beth?" "Besides you and me, there's half the class." "Can you make it?" "Brad's going." "Beth, David will kill me if I go to lunch with Brad." "For heaven's sake, April, this is lunch with former classmates, not sex with one ex-boyfriend. Besides, you didn't even talk to Brad last night, and it's just lunch. After the way David embarrassed me last night, it would do him good." "What time and where?" "Holiday Inn at noon." "Okay, but I have to get home before David gets off work. He has to be home by 5 or earlier." "And that's it." She repeated herself. I descended the stairs and took out the bag I had 10 years prior. To make sure there would be no air leakage, I shrink-wrapped it. I then got to work packing my belongings. I intended to relocate and remain in the apartment situated above the garage. 2 suitcases were waiting for April at the door, and the majority of my personal belongings were in my truck. She arrived at the door at 4 o'clock. She had on a short dress with a plunging neckline, complete with jewelry. She appeared prepared for retaliation. "David, what are you doing home?" I thought you were working until 5 o'clock. I felt ashamed of the way I treated you yesterday, so I thought I'd make it up to you and take you out to dinner. It looks like you've already eaten. David, there's something I have to tell you. I played the recorded message. Before you say anything, I want you to hear something. Listen. Oh God, David, we weren't doing anything. We were just having lunch. I'm not going to do anything to hurt you. You have to believe me, she said. Let me tell you something, April, and then we'll see if you can say the same. Since we've been married, I've never once had sex with another person. Can you say that, April? David, to be honest, we only had lunch. There were about 30 people from the class there. Ask anyone. Brad wanted to do something, but I wouldn't let him. I told him no, and if he tries it again, I'll tell you, and then I slapped him. David, you have to believe me. David, absolutely nothing happened. Honestly. Then let me hear you say what I said, or are you lying? Okay, David, honestly, I haven't had sex with anyone since we got married. Now, will you let me explain what happened so we can forget about it and make up? I took out the tape, and she cried out when she saw the pink underwear. Not yet. I have another tape for you. God, David, no. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for this to happen. I love you, only you. She listened to her 10-year-old conversation with Beth. She noticed the table with the dried underwear. She was inconsolable and speechless. One more thing you should know. I am not Danny's biological father. Your lover Brad is. But as far as I'm concerned, she's my child, and I'm not going to let that freak of a boyfriend take her away from me. April screamed when I placed my and Danny's DNA test results on the table with a note that said, "No match found." No, it can't be. It can't be true. Please, David, please don't leave me. I love you, David. I love only you. She started crying as I was leaving the room with the final 2 suitcases. Chapter 2, The Story of April. How should I begin? I'll do my best to explain what transpired without going over everything with you again. I'll have to say things again in a few spots so you get all the information. We all attended the same high school, as David mentioned. At the time, Brad was my boyfriend. It seems like we spent almost 2 years together. Our senior year was the only time we had sex. It happened following the school dance. When Brad arrived at my house, nobody was there. We engaged in the typical sexual activity for youth. Brad went home after filling up his own belly and telling me what a great expletive I was. There is no way I could be more disappointed. After hearing all these tales and seeing these films, you act upon them. Brad yearned to repeat the experience over the ensuing weeks. I tried to dissuade him repeatedly. I was not going to be his recreational toy. Then I saw him standing behind the gym bleachers with Mary Lou. I called him a big expletive and told him I didn't want to see him again when I saw him caressing her. He repeatedly expressed regret to me. It made no difference, so I broke up with him. That's when I started dating David. I've always liked him, but I was in a committed relationship with Brad, so I didn't take any action. Dave always assumed I was seeing him in order to enrage Brad. That is partially true, but like most girls, I was a high school student when I fell in love. When David asked me out, I was elated. For the record, some call him Dave, while others refer to him as David. I go by both names. When you consider it, it's actually rather humorous. Dave believed that because Brad was a jock, all the girls were in love with him. As it happened, most girls were smitten with Dave. Like any jock, he was attractive, intelligent, physically fit, and capable of fixing anything. We dubbed him MC Dave in honor of MacGyver from television. After we began dating and were both enrolled in college courses, we had sex approximately 6 months later. I retract what I just said, we made love. It was excellent. I wasn't expecting much after the Brad incident, but David was incredibly kind and gentle. He put me on the bed in his apartment and gave me a gentle kiss. I had my second sex experience with him, and there was no bam 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 involved. He then took a nap next to me until we were both tired, after which he drove me home. After that, we had numerous sexual encounters. I didn't get pregnant that first time, which was fortunate for us. We tied the knot following our graduations. He was an amazing partner. Although my parents liked him, they were drawn to the idea of Brad becoming a lawyer. I simply informed them that I loved David and not Brad, and that was the end of it. Following that, I became pregnant, and Carly was born. She was adorable and very sweet. David was among those who thought she looked like me. Babies, in my opinion, look the way you want them to. She had a me-like appearance one day and a David-like appearance the next. I just know that she was a lovely young girl. Life was good, and we were very happy. Then came that awful day. We went to our 5-year reunion. We had a really good time. I guess I started putting myself out there too much. I remember dancing with Brad a few times. I wanted him to see what he had given up for Mary Lou, who ended up becoming a nun. The next day, a few classmates went out for lunch before heading home. David couldn't come because he had some cars he promised to finish. I went alone and made the biggest mistake of my life. After lunch, I went to Brad's room, and he started hitting on me. I know I kept saying no because I was married, but for some ungodly reason, I gave in and let him possess me. I think it had something to do with me comparing him to David. I don't know. It was just a stupid mistake. When we, or should I say he, finished, I felt nothing but humiliation. At that moment, I realized how wrong it was. We both got dressed, and I had to get out of there. I drove home crying, needing to wash away all the dirt I felt. I can tell you right now that there is no way to wash away cheating. Once you've done it, it stays forever. I called my friend Beth. I needed to tell someone how I felt. Beth was my best friend, and I knew she would always keep it a secret if I asked her to. She wasn't at her place, so I left her a message to call me. I was in the shower trying to wash away my sin when the phone rang. I heard the answering machine pick up the call and managed to get to the phone before Beth hung up. I told her what I had done and that it would lead to the end of my marriage and I would lose the man I loved. Then Beth told me not to tell him, it would only hurt him and end a good marriage. I told her she was right. I did a very stupid thing, and I have to live with it. I could make it up to David by loving him and our daughter. That's what I decided to do. I forgot about the stupid answering machine, and David, as you know, got the tape in the panties I was wearing and kept them. I didn't even think about the panties. I have half a dozen pink panties, and it didn't even occur to me that one pair was missing. When David came home, I took him into the bedroom and made love to him over and over again. I really loved him and decided that I could live with the pain of what I had done as long as I had David. About 9 months later, we had our second child. We named her after David. His middle name is Daniel, so we named our sweet baby girl Danny after him. Again, everyone said she looked like me, Carly, and some said she looked like David. Personally, I thought she looked a lot like her sister Carly, and as she grew up, she looked more and more like Carly. You could tell they were sisters. Life went on, and we had a wonderful life. We did everything together with the children. Little Danny always wanted to go with Daddy, and David took her with him every chance he got. They could hardly be separated. When the decade reunion came around, I told David I didn't want to go. I didn't know if Brad was coming from New York or not. I knew I didn't want to see him. David didn't mind. He wasn't much into reunions at all. He had specifically planned for the 4 of us to go to Kings Island Amusement Park. We spent 2 nights in a motel, took the kids on rides all day until they were tired, and made love when we got back to the room. David was a wonderful father and husband. We had DNA testing at our school. Every child could take the test, and the results were sent to the family doctor and could be picked up there. I asked David if he could go into the doctor's office and get Carly and Danny's results. He brought them home and showed them to me. It was a bunch of dots and dashes. It meant nothing to me, and David put them in the safe in case we ever needed them. In retrospect, I can remember David being a little discouraged. I thought he was sick with something, and he actually rested and drank a lot for about 3 days. He even slept on the couch, saying he didn't want me to pick up anything he might have. Looking back now, I realize I didn't notice any difference in David. Danny lay down with him every morning. She tended to wake up in the middle of the night and always lay down next to Daddy. She loved him very much. Life seemed to be falling into a routine. The children were doing different things at school, and David and I attended all the events for both of them. I remember when Danny was about 9, there was a career day at school. She asked David if he could talk to the class about becoming an auto repairman. David laughed, but said he would do it for her. After he spoke, Danny told the class how proud she was of her dad and that when she grew up, she wanted to be an auto mechanic like him. David said he couldn't help but be proud of her. Beth was in charge of the 15-year reunion and asked me to help her with it. David was not enthusiastic about going and let me know about it. I had to go. I was part of the committee. Besides, I hadn't seen Brad in 10 years and had no feelings for him. I dressed nicely for the reunion, but I always wanted to look nice. I wanted David to be proud of his wife. I was nice to people, but I tried not to flirt. I knew David hated it. When we walked through the door, Brad was already there and came over to us. I couldn't believe what David told him. He said, "Brad, I'm tired of pretending I don't like you, and I never have. I'm not going to shake your hand, and I don't expect you to spend the entire meeting with my wife." I looked at David and said, "David, how could you say such a bad thing? God, I'm embarrassed." I looked at Brad and started to apologize. David just waved his hand in disgust and walked away. Later, I walked up to David and started arguing with him. "How could you do that, David? Brad didn't do anything to deserve this. He's always treated you with respect. I was just trying to smooth things over." David must have thought I still liked Brad, which was completely untrue. David got drunk, we left the party early, and I drove him home. The next morning, he went to the store before I even got up. The girl spent the night with my mom. I stepped into the shower, and then the phone rang. I was almost done and jumped out of the shower to answer it. The stupid answering machine went off, and I had to wait for it to stop. It was Beth. She wanted to know if I was coming to lunch with the class. She said about half the class would be there. I decided to go and see some classmates I hadn't had time to hang out with since my husband got drunk and I had to drive him home. I figured Brad would be there, but I would try to stay away from him. When I arrived at the Holiday Inn, we had the dining room reserved because so many classmates came to the reunion and stayed there. I saw Brad and kept as far away as possible. I said hello to him as he approached, but tried my best to stay away from him. He almost made me flinch. I had to go into the ladies' room, which was around the corner. When I came out of the ladies' room, Brad was standing there and wouldn't let me pass. He grabbed my hands and tried to kiss me. He said that if I didn't cooperate, he would tell David about what happened at the 5-year reunion. I recoiled and kicked him in the head as hard as I could, then brought my knee up and hit him in the gonads. As I ran back to my seat, I ran past Beth and Sister Mary Lou. I know they saw the whole thing. I tried my best to be calm, but I was still a little shaky. I sat down among friends and felt much better. Brad never came back to the table. He must have gone up to his room and then gone home. I have no idea. Beth came back to the table and quietly asked if I was okay. I replied that I was and that I was going to tell David what Brad had done today. I wasn't going to say anything about the 5-year reunion, just what happened today. I had our van, and Beth asked if I could drive 5 members of the class to the airport. There were 3 girls and 2 guys, one of the couples was married. The ride to the airport was pleasant. We dropped off the classmates, then I dropped off Beth and headed home. When I walked into the house, David was standing there. He said he had gotten home early and was going to take me out to dinner to make up for being such an idiot at the reunion the day before. I told him I had something to tell him. I was about to tell him what Brad had done when a recording played on the stupid answering machine. I told him I didn't do anything, but he didn't believe me. He didn't give me a chance to explain. Then he told me he had another message I needed to hear. I don't know where it came from, but he replayed my conversation with Beth about that stupid mistake the day after our 5th reunion. I listened to myself saying I was having fun with Brad. I broke down and started crying. I didn't even realize he knew about it. He asked me before turning on the tape if I had had sex with anyone since we got married. I replied no, not knowing he had the tape. Then he gave me the worst news of my life. Our baby, our Danny, was not his biological daughter. He took the DNA printout and placed it next to Danny along with a piece of paper that said no match. I wanted to die. I'll never know how he walked out the door, and I sat there crying. I cried for me, and I cried for David. He had been the perfect husband and father and had held it all together for 10 years. To find out a few years after she was born that he wasn't the donor for Danny was just unbearable. He was her father, and no one could take that away. He'd been there for her from the first day, attended the birth, and took the girls to my mom's yesterday. I wanted to die. I wanted God to come down right now and just take me away. I was probably going to hell anyway for my past actions. I had lost the man I loved, and now I had to take his children and tell them that their father had abandoned me. God help me. Chapter 3, What Happens Next? I should have known years ago that it would eventually come to this. I'd kept her affair a secret for 10 years and Danny's donor for at least 4. Maybe I should have done something 10 years ago and ended it then. The last 10 years have been the best and worst of my life. We're both keeping the same secret. It's crazy since I knew and stayed with her anyway. Why don't I just tell her I knew? At least I won't be waiting for her to cheat again, waiting to pull out the old tape and panties. Why, after 10 years, did she come back and get back together with that creep? My head was spinning. I had questions for her and for myself, but no answers. Danny, my little Danny, Daddy's little girl. I wanted to make sure she never found out. She's my daughter, and I had to protect her. I had to make sure April never told her. I didn't want anyone to find out. I believe April will never find out. She was shocked when I told her about Danny's DNA and mine. Monday after school, I got a call in the garage. It was Danny. Daddy, when are you coming home? I miss you. Mommy cries all the time, and Carly just sits in her room. Come home, please, Daddy. God, I wish I could touch the heartstrings. Honey, Daddy can't come home right now. Mom and I are having some kind of problem. But I'll tell you what, I'll pick you and Carly up, and we'll go out for pizza or something. Can Mom come over? Not this time, honey. Maybe next time. Go ask Carly if she wants to go. Daddy, Carly wants to go, but she says she has to take care of Mommy. She won't stop crying. Can you and I go to McDonald's, and I'll get Carly and Mommy something? Damn, what great kids, always worrying about everyone else. Yes, honey, we can do that. It's up to you to figure out what they want. I'll be there in about 20 minutes to pick you up. Okay, Daddy, I love you. I heard a voice in the background. Daddy, Mommy told me to tell you we all love you. I'll see you in a little while. Bye. Damn it. I just don't know what else to say. Damn it, damn it, damn it. I hate her, and I love her. Why can't I think straight? I went and talked to the guys to close the garage when they were done. I had some really good guys working for me. They knew cars, and I paid them well for it. I had their respect, and they had mine. I told them that April and I were having some problems in case I jumped on them for no reason. I apologized in advance. Danny jumped into the truck and kissed me hard on the cheek. She kissed me 2 more times. She said one kiss was from Carly and the other was from Mom. With tears in my eyes, I drove to McDonald's. I informed Danny that I was staying in the garage and that she and Carly could call me anytime. Even if I wasn't home, I would still be available to them at any time. I asked her to tell her mom that I had some things to tell her and I would call her tomorrow after school. The next day, when I called, Carly answered the phone and said her mom was in the bathroom and would be right out. Then she asked, "Daddy, what happened so bad that you moved out? Did Mommy, me, or Danny do something? I know I'm only 12, but I'm pretty smart. I know you wouldn't just leave us like that. What happened, Dad? What did we do?" "Honey, you and Danny didn't do anything wrong. I couldn't be more proud of both of you." "What did Mommy do, Daddy?" "I know she loves you." "Daddy, she cries every night. I'm a little afraid she might do something stupid." "I know Mom, Dad. If she's done something wrong, she'll do anything to make it right. That's the kind of person she is. Give her a chance, Dad. I don't know what she did that was so bad to make you go away. She doesn't tell us anything." "Honey, this is between Mom and me. There's nothing you can do about it. Your mom and I have some serious differences that we need to talk about. I'm glad you're at least helping her. Dad, Danny and I are here for you too. We're a family, Dad. A good family. You should know that. I love you, Daddy." I cried and tried not to show it. God, I loved my girl so much. April picked up the phone. "Hey, David." "April, we need to talk. I'm worried about Danny. I don't want her to find out I'm not her father." "You're her father. You've always been there for her. That's what real fathers do." "Dave, I never knew. I honestly never knew. I guess in a way, it's a good thing I never knew. I can't talk about this over the phone, David. I need to see you to tell you what happened." "April, how do you think I can believe everything you tell me? You've been lying to me for at least 10 years. As far as I know, everything you've ever told me is a lie. I don't know what to believe anymore. Dave, please meet with me and let me tell you everything. I know if you want to believe it's all a lie, so be it. But give me a chance to tell you. If not for us, then for Carly and Danny. All I ask is that you listen to me before you destroy our marriage, our family." She was crying. I could hear it over the phone. "Okay, April, I'll listen to what you have to say. I don't know whether to believe anything, but I'll give you a chance to say it." "Thank you, David. That's all I ask. I promise I'll answer any questions you have. Even if you don't believe me, at least I'll know I've been honest with you." The rest of the week, I did my garage business. I talked to the girls every day, and they told me what they were doing at school. Carly said her mom felt a little better after talking to me. My little girl thanked me for talking to her mom. I didn't feel like talking or listening to April. I didn't know if I should believe her, and I had to figure out in my mind why I hadn't left 10 years ago. The best reason I could come up with was that she was truly sorry. At least that's what it sounded like on the tape, and she was going to do her best to make it up to me. I have to say that she kept that promise right up until the last reunion dinner. I really wanted to know why she went and what she was doing there, whether she went to see Brad or not. Hell, I wanted answers. That's why I wanted to hear what she was going to say. I showed up at the house around noon on Saturday. My 2 girls ran out to meet me. "Daddy's here. Daddy's here," Danny shouted. She jumped into my arms and, of course, expected me to catch her. No problem. I would never let my baby girl fall to the ground, and she trusted me to make sure of that. Carly came running out and kissed me on the cheek. Carly said her mom was making lunch. I asked what they were having for lunch. She smiled and said that since I was here, her mom wanted to make sure we had a good meal since I probably wasn't eating right. Barbecue steak, mashed potatoes and gravy, corn on the cob, and homemade bread. I helped too, Danny said. Yeah, you ate it while it was hot, Carly replied. My two daughters fought constantly but loved each other very much. Okay, girls, let's go inside. I walked in, and there was April standing in the kitchen dressed like a Stepford wife. For those who have never heard of it, these were women who were always dressed up for their husbands, usually in dresses and with perfect hair. That's exactly what April looked like. She was wearing a little apron, and the table was already set. Welcome home, David, she said. She was putting herself out there. I had to stop some of it, even though I liked the way everything, including April, looked. I'm not at home. I live above the garage. This is my home for now. I came here today to talk to you. That should knock the wind out of her sails. Since lunch is ready, why don't you have lunch with us? Asked April. I didn't answer but sat down in the chair. I was about to grab my food when Danny said, Daddy, we have to thank God. Then she continued, God is great, God is good, let's thank Him for our food. And thank you for bringing Daddy home to eat with us. Amen. Damn, it wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair. I was here to talk. I ate an amazing dinner, and I knew my kids were being honest. I know April set it up, but not the kids. They were glad Daddy came over for dinner. Damn, that woman could cook. When we were done eating, I told the girls I would take them to Grandma's, and Mom would pick them up later. Dad, will you be here when we get back? No, honey, not now. I'm just here to talk to Mom, and then I'm going back to the garage. The girls looked depressed. I thanked them for helping their mom make a wonderful lunch and asked them if they wanted to go to the zoo next Saturday. They both shouted, Yes, we want to go. Can Mom go too? Damn, I forgot about what they might ask. I told them I'd see them again and I'd talk to them during the week. The whole time, April just sat there not saying a word. Then she spoke up and said she would clean up after herself, and I would take the kids to her mother's house. When I returned, she had cleaned everything up and put the leftovers into containers for me to take with me. This whole thing was a ploy on my behalf, wasn't it, April? I wanted her to know I could see right through her. Hell, anyone could see through that, but I had to start the conversation somehow. Of course, it was on my part, but not on the girls' part. They were just glad their father would be here. Well, we better get started. I'll let you tell me anything you want to tell me. I can cut in with questions I need answered. Is that okay with you? Suit yourself, David. I just want to tell you everything and let the cards fall where they may. How many times have you had fun with Brad? My goodness, David, you don't have to be so abrupt. I told you I'd answer all your questions. Again, how many times have you had fun with Brad? Twice. Once when we walked together, and that stupid time after the 5th reunion. Are you telling me you've only had sex with him twice in your entire life? It's true, David. The first time was so bad that I didn't even realize how good it could be until I made love to you. I want to add that you and Brad are the only two men I've ever had sex with in my entire life. I now wish I had never had sex with Brad, even the first time. Damn, that kind of threw me off a little bit. I've had sex with a lot of girls from our class. Glad I don't have to tell her about them. Why did you do it with him a second time, April? I don't know, David. Don't expect me to cry a lot right now. I'm covered in tears. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe to compare you to him, maybe because it was so bad the first time, I might have thought it was my fault. I don't know, David. I really don't know. God, I wish I did. I wish I could go back to that day and not do it. I can wish it had never happened, but it did, David. It did, and I'll have to live with it for the rest of my life. Her eyes were watering. Why didn't you tell me? You would have left me, David. I know you would have. I don't know why you didn't when you found out. David, after it happened, I came home and spent an hour in the shower trying to wash the cheating off me. I hated what I had done to you, but all I could think about was that if I told you, you would leave me and Carly. I decided to accept the pain and be the best wife I could be. I really wanted to tell you. God, it was so hard to keep it from you, but I knew it would hurt you if you found out, and we would be forced to divorce. I loved you too much to lose you, David. I still love you too much to lose you now. She started crying again. What about Danny? When did you find out I wasn't her donor? 2 weeks ago, when you told me. I was devastated. I didn't know what to think. After that session with Brad, I scrubbed and scrubbed, trying to wash away thoughts of Brad. I made love to you 3 times that night. I wanted you so badly. I wanted to do anything for you. That's why I was so happy when I got pregnant. You and I had a baby together, and it felt so right. Then you showed me the DNA. I didn't know what to think. If I had known I was pregnant with Brad's baby, I would have had an abortion. I really would have. I want your kids, not someone else's. I keep thinking that if I'd known it was Brad's seed and had an abortion, there'd be no Danny. You see, I'm really worried about that too, David. Like I said before, Danny is your daughter and no one else's. She will know that for the rest of her life. I don't want to see her suffer. You're her dad. The only daddy. I thought she was crying, but apparently not. Let's move on to lunch, where you intended to cheat on me again. God, no, David, it's not true. It is absolutely, without a doubt, not true. I was only going to lunch with half the class. April, I brought a cassette tape with me. Let's listen to it together. I turned the tape back on. Hi, April said. Hey girl, what are you up to? It was Beth. Hey Beth, just got out of the shower when I heard the phone ring. What's wrong? Lunch. Do you want to come to lunch with a group of classmates? Who's coming, Beth? Besides you and me, there's half the class. Can you make it? Brad's going. Beth, David will kill me if I go to lunch with Brad. For heaven's sake, April, this is lunch with former classmates, not sex with one ex-boyfriend. Besides, you didn't even talk to Brad last night, and it's just lunch. After the way David embarrassed me last night, it would do him good. What time and where, Beth? Holiday Inn at noon. Okay, but I have to get home before David gets off work. He has to be home by 5 or earlier. Well, that's it. You said, after David embarrassed me last night, this will serve him right. What did you mean, April? Going out to dinner with friends or having dinner with Brad? Did you have fun with him too, or were you planning on doing that? No, David, you misunderstood the meaning. I really meant that if I had lunch with Brad, you would be pissed. I can't deny that the rest was just a statement people make. I had no intention of being with Brad, none whatsoever. In fact, he gave me the creeps. I tried to stay as far away from him as possible. Ask Beth, ask anyone. I tried to stay away from him, David. You see, April, I can't believe you. Maybe you're telling the truth or maybe you're lying. I can't believe Beth. She's your best friend, she'd lie for you if you asked her to. You keep saying you've been trying to stay away from him, so you're telling me you failed. God, David, that's exactly what I've been trying to tell you. I went to the ladies' room, and when I came out, Brad was standing there. He wouldn't let me get past him. He grabbed my hands and said, "Kiss me, or I'll tell your husband about the 5-year reunion dinner." So you kissed him? Is that what you're going to tell me? No, never, David. I punched him in the head with my fist and then kicked him hard in the balls with my knee. He fell to the ground, and I ran back to lunch. Beth and Mary Lou appeared from around the corner. I'm not sure they saw much. You'll have to ask Beth. She'll tell you. April, again, can I believe Beth, your best friend? Why are you home so late? Your lunch certainly didn't last nearly 4 hours. When I got back to the table, I was breathing hard, and Beth asked if I was okay. She asked if I wanted to drive any of my classmates to the airport, and she would go with me. Brad was one of the people you took to the airport? No, after I hit him with my knee, he didn't come back for lunch. Besides, I think he came to the reunion in his car. According to Margaret, one of his classmates, he likes to show off his car. What kind of car does he have, April? I have no idea, David. I've never seen it, and I never wanted to see it. When you returned, you were dressed for reprisal. Why, David? I always dress well, especially for you. You know that. But I wasn't there. Were you dressing for someone else, like for Brad? No, David. I know you won't believe this, but I used to dress for you. I always dress for you. When someone sees me, I want them to know that I am your woman. I know it's hard for you to understand because you're a man, but it's true. I didn't answer. Maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't. I asked her if she wanted to tell me anything else before I left. Well, David, 10 years ago I made an almost tragic mistake. I say almost because Danny pulled through, and I wouldn't want to lose her for anything in the world. Other than that, I wish it would all be forgotten and faded from my memory and yours. I love you with all my heart and soul, and I always will, no matter what happens. I was stupid 10 years ago, but I haven't done anything wrong since, including that dinner. For some reason, you decided to forgive me 10 years ago. I don't know why, but nothing has changed since then. If you could forgive me then, why can't you love me now? I love you even more, and I know you love Carly and Danny. I love you, David, and I want you home with our family. She started crying again. I told her that I needed to think about it and that I would talk to her again. I told her to kiss the girls for me and went to my truck and back to the apartment above the garage. Chapter 4, Conclusion. I went home and kept listening to the tapes over and over again. I had no proof whether she was telling the truth or not. I just didn't know. A couple of days later, Beth came in and said she wanted to talk to me. I made my way to the office to hear her out. She started by telling me that she found out about the affair after the 5th reunion. She talked to April, and April said that I knew about it. She said it was her suggestion that April not tell me about it. It happened, and it was over and done with. There was no benefit to telling me. She told me that the only reason April kept it from me was because she didn't want to hurt me and was afraid I would divorce her. I explained to Beth that I almost understood what had happened after the 5th reunion. I was curious to know what had happened at the 15th luncheon. Before she started, I told her that I had to take everything she said with a grain of salt since she was such a close friend of April's. Well, I called April and asked her about the lunch since she was on the committee. She asked me if Brad would be there. I said he would be, and she wondered if she should come. I made some silly remark that I wasn't entertaining anyone, that it was just lunch. She said something about you deserved it. I think that was her way of saying she was mad at you for the night before. I truly believe she meant nothing of the sort. Beth, where was she sitting and was she talking to Brad? I need the truth. Beth, lying for her won't help either of us. She sat as far away from Brad as possible. One time, Brad came up to her and she said hi to him, but that was the end of it. He went back to his seat. Later, he confronted her. I don't know what was said, but I can tell you what I saw. April came out of the restroom, and I saw Brad grab her arm. She burst out and gave him a good kick to the head, then she brought her knee up and hit him right in the testicles. He went down, and she went back to her seat. What happened then, Beth? April was a little agitated, so I calmed her down and we decided to drive a few people to the airport. It was a nice ride, and April seemed to calm down. Dave, it's none of my business, but I realize you've been hurt over the years, but so has April. She's my best friend. You're right, I'm here because she loves you and you love her. You have 2 wonderful children. Don't give it all up now. She didn't do anything but eat lunch. Believe me, she had no intention of cheating on you. Thanks for stopping by, Beth. You're a good friend to April. Beth left and I looked over what she'd said. It was pretty much the same thing April had said. I turned around, and Beth walked back in. David, there's something very important I forgot to tell you. It might help you to believe me. What's the matter, Beth? The reason Brad never came back to the table is because he was taken to the hospital. Apparently, he fell and hit the side of his face on the floor and it turned black and blue, according to the hospital report. Also, for some reason, one of his testicles had jammed and had to be removed. Beverly, who works as a nurse at the hospital, called me the other day. Believe it or not, I forgot to tell April. Tell her for me. I just found out yesterday. Brad was going to sue the restaurant, but when they found out about the testicle, he decided not to sue. Thanks, Beth. That was good news, regardless of what I decide to do. I'll tell April. Maybe there's some truth to it. If only there was someone I could believe who wasn't our friend. The next day, Mary, or should I say Sister Mary Lou, came to change the oil in her convent car. While my boys were changing the oil, Sister Mary said, "You want to talk to me, don't you?" As a matter of fact, yes. Were you at lunch a couple of weeks ago? David, stop beating around the bush. I may be a nun, but I've known you all my life. I know you pretty well, and I have to say you were one of the few guys I ever respected in my wilder days. You still treated me well. You were always polite and well-mannered. I respect you for that, and I'll put in a good word for you someday. She smiled. Yes, David, I was at lunch, and yes, I saw Brad trying to hit on April at the restroom door. I saw Brad grab April. I was going to go and try to stop him, but April didn't need any help. She lashed out and kicked Brad in the head and then hit him with her knee in the intimate area, so to speak. He went down, and April walked away. I called for a waiter who was nearby, and they rendered aid to Brad. That's all I saw. I don't know what's wrong, but you and April are two special people and deserve to be together. David, heed the words of a wise nun and friend. If you and April are having problems in your marriage, you should ask yourself just one question. Will my life be better without this person? That's the only question you have to ask yourself. We can't let things like pride and an unwillingness to forgive others for their mistakes take over our lives. Just ask yourself, would I be happier without April in my life, and act on it? I hope I've helped you in some small way. God bless you and April, Dave. I thanked Sister Mary as she got in the car and drove away. I knew I could trust her. She never knew what was wrong, and I was sure she wouldn't lie for April's sake. I would have to call April tomorrow and talk to her again before I could make the call. The phone rang. It was Danny. Hi, Daddy. I had to call you and ask if Mommy could go to the zoo with us. Remember? Yes, honey, I remember. And yes, Mommy can come with us. I heard her yelling at Carly to tell April she was going to the zoo too. What a family, Danny said. Is Mom there? I need to talk to her. She shouted into the receiver, Mommy, Daddy wants to talk to you. Here it is, Daddy. I'll see you Saturday. Hi, David. This is a nice surprise. I can go to the zoo with you. I could see that she was smiling. You could feel it on the phone. That's not why I was going to call, but you can go to the zoo. I was going to call you to let you know that Beth called me and said that Brad didn't return to his table because his right nut was stuck and his face was swollen. The restaurant staff took him to the emergency room. Unfortunately, he will live. David, those are two moves you taught me when we first started dating. You said that if some guy came up to my front, I should use my knee and try to hit him in the ear area. I guess I missed, but I hit him in the temple. I have you to thank for teaching me, April. After we get back from the zoo on Saturday, we need to talk again if that's okay with you. Anything to get you back to me, I'll do, David. Anything at all. We all want you and need you to be with us, David. Well, we'll talk on Saturday. No need to make dinner, we'll eat after we see the animals. I'll see you on Saturday. Thank you, David. I love you. And she hung up. It was a fun day on Saturday. I took April's hand after taking a few steps back. Naturally, she remained silent. Spending time together and feeding the animals was enjoyable. Even though it was only 3 weeks, it felt like much longer. The children had been overjoyed. I gave the girls the option to decide where we would eat after we left the zoo. I was waiting on Chuck E. Cheese or McDonald's when all the girls said at once, "Red Lobster." I asked April if she was buying the kids bribes, glancing at her because I knew this was one of her favorite restaurants. "I promised not to lie to you. Indeed, I pay them off." "What did you bribe them with?" After giving me a quick glance, she said, "I promised them that I would try to convince their daddy to sleep at home tonight." I didn't reply to her response. I inquired about everyone's meal preferences. We had dinner and then headed to the house. We put the kids to bed because it was getting late. After that, April and I went to the living room and took a seat to chat. "David, what's the issue? How can I make things right in this situation?" "April, I think you were honest with me regarding lunch. When Sister Mary Lou arrived, she informed me that she had witnessed you fending off Brad and gave me advice on how to resolve my issue." "David, what did she say?" "She said you have to ask yourself one question: would I be happier without April in my life, and act accordingly?" "What's your answer, David?" She waited once more, her eyes full of tears. "I want you, Carly, and Danny in my life every day." "David, oh my God. I adore you a lot." I gave in to her kiss. "April, I'm still having trouble. I'm going to have to vent my frustration on Brad if I don't get even with you." "Brad, David, resides in New York. How are you able to help?" "Wait until the next reunion." After that, we had sex in the bedroom. I stood up and changed back into my pajamas. "April, what are you doing, David?" "I thought Danny was coming here tonight, and I need some clothes." April gave me a look and said, "David, welcome home. I genuinely adore you. Without you in my life, it wouldn't exist." Both she and I dozed off. On Sunday morning, Danny was asleep on my arm when I woke up. It appears that I will need to start locking my bedroom door, but I can put that off for another year. Having my little girl with me was so much fun. Everybody got back on course. Indeed, things did get better. I made a promise to April that we would stop keeping secrets from one another. If there was an issue between us, we talked about it. We both no longer carried secrets, which relieved a great deal of our burden. After all this time, it was finally time for the 20-year reunion. April informed Beth that while we would both be there, she would not be serving on the committee, even though Beth was back on it. I asked April's best friend, Beth, over the phone if Brad had returned his invitation. She retorted that he had, but it was only for one person, a minor but significant note. Mike is a really good realtor that Beth remarried. Even though Beth is attractive, my April was still the most stunning woman when we went to their wedding. Naturally, I told April what I had learned about Brad. Brad practiced law, but not very well. He had amassed wealth by wedlocking the president's daughter of the company. She acted as his secretary, but ultimately, it was she who managed all the complexities. She was never going to travel from New York to our little country town for Brad's reunion, which is why she never attended the gatherings. Conversely, Brad believed he was still the big man on campus. We arrived early at the reunion. April had such a gorgeous appearance. This time, I believed her when she said she dressed for me. No pantyhose today, just shorts and panties from Victoria's Secret. I could have fun with her on the floor, even if she were to become my wife. We behaved like a married couple. As our friends approached us, I noticed Brad was positioned at the bar. He must have put on 30 pounds in the last 5 years and was bald. He was showing his new Mercedes with the leather interior to one of his old friends. When I started to approach him, April became alarmed and followed me. His friend moved away upon noticing my unhappy expression, saying, "My wife said there was something you wanted to tell me at the last meeting. What is it?" I approached Brad. Brad appeared anxious. I don't remember, I'm sorry. I have a message for you, overweight freak. I will inflict severe injuries on you if you even touch my wife. Do I convey my message clearly, you overvalued, __, Yes, I hear you. He turned around and left without further ado. April said, I love you, David, as she leaned over to kiss me this time. Enough to give me a kiss right now at this celebration? You can't be serious, David. I want to keep myself hidden from everyone else, but you. Accompany me. Right now, I want you. Brad's car was in the parking lot when we ventured outside. April and I climbed into the rear seat after it was unlocked. We found out a few weeks later that Brad had borrowed the car to flaunt at a reception, but it actually belonged to his wife. We can't do it here, David. Of course we can. She entered the vehicle. What a gorgeous car with roomy, stylish leather seats. However, we were forced to leave our underwear inside the car and clean it entirely. We exited the vehicle and made our way back to the gathering. We were preparing to head out as the party was coming to an end. As April bid us farewell, I stepped outside onto the porch and noticed Brad puffing on a joint from around the corner. I approached him and delivered a middle-of-the-torso punch. I picked him up and gave him a kidney punch after he collapsed to the ground. I began to urinate on him after he collapsed to the ground and soaked himself. I told April I could wait when she asked what I was doing. She retorted that she, too, was impatient. She came over to him and knelt on his head while I stood on his arms. She drained her bladder all the way. It reminded me, I told her, of the way an elephant urinates at the zoo. Is that revenge enough, sweetheart? She inquired. We walked to the car and made our way home after I told her it was my pleasure. He was yelling that he would sue us, and I heard him. I assured him that I would come to New York and hurt him, so the matter would not go to court. He never brought legal action. She grinned and told me that although what we had done was wrong, she was so happy that I had exacted my revenge when we got home. I informed her that it would take a few days to complete the retaliation. I assured her that I would keep her guessing. I told her she needed to call on Monday. To prevent tracing of the number, I purchased a track phone. A track phone is a cheap phone that has a limited number of minutes. When we were through calling, we could dispose of it. I requested she give Brad's office a call. I assumed that, given the humiliation he'd endured, it was unlikely that he would turn up on the first day. It takes him a day to straighten up. Naturally, I wanted the secretary, his wife, to answer the phone. With a smile on her face, April said, "Oh, David, you're mean." I conveyed my wishes to April, and she responded with a shake of her head, "Honey, I want you to never be angry with me again." When she called Brad's office, the receptionist answered her call. After learning that Brad wasn't home when she tried to speak with him, she asked if she could speak with his secretary instead. April said she had left a personal item in Brad's car and asked if he could mail it to her when the secretary's wife answered the phone. When the secretary inquired about it, April said that it was a personal matter. The front desk agent assured her that everything would be kept confidential. My underwear. My underwear was left on the back seat of his vehicle. Since it was a gift from Victoria's Secret, I wanted to keep it, but I wouldn't have called. On the phone, we could feel the secretary's rage, but we also realized that she needed as much information as possible. "Who is this, and how do you know Brad?" she inquired. "I'm his longtime high school girlfriend, and we get together at reunions," April stated. "Could you perhaps ask him to forward them to me? Do they match my set? He is aware of my residence." "Oh, I apologize." "Kindly apologize to him, his wife passed away." "I'll pass on all the information, you can rest assured." "Mary Lou, what was your name again?" "He'll remember me, I swear." "Once again, thank you. Tell him I said hello." Then April hung up her phone. April gave me a look and said, "I didn't feel like I had the right to do that, David. I am aware that he was due. I did it for you, and I want you to know that. You have my word that I will fulfill all of your requests." "April, Please stop asking me for these kinds of things. You seem to have shown me that you love me. I swear that I will never ask you to do something that you believe is incorrect. We've got our retribution, I believe. The only thing is that I'll have to travel to New York and remove Danny's kidney myself from Brad if he ever needs one. My family is my top priority. Epilogue, things carried on. Brad was never discussed again. Brad didn't show up at the 25th reunion, which we attended. It was rumored that he had been fired from the firm and was divorced. He began working for a different company that offered far fewer benefits. It has been reported that his spouse discovered a duo of underwear in the rear of her Mercedes. Brad claimed he was being set up and denied everything, but after his wife did a DNA test, it was discovered that Brad's fingerprints were on the underwear. That alone was enough to make her believe he was having an affair. We learned that he was having extramarital affairs with multiple secretaries working for him. He attracted women by using his position. He was sued by 2 former secretaries. Unless Sister Mary Lou got the panties, she never sent them back to us. Carly went on to become a teacher, got married, and started a family. Danny's wed to a driver of race cars. She makes a ton of money running our garage. She eventually ran into a fellow competitor, who declared her to be both the prettiest and the best mechanic he had ever seen. Many drivers bring their cars to her for repairs. They are parents to 2 children. She frequently expressed her desire to emulate her father. Some drivers call her MCD Denny, she told me. The committee summoned April and me to the platform at our 31st reunion. As the happiest married couple in our class, we received an award. They questioned us about our secret after all these years, given how common separation and divorce are in today's culture. Years ago, a very close friend told me the secret between marriage and divorce, I said, glancing at April. Simply ask yourself if you would be a happier person without April in your life, and then take appropriate action, she advised. I always respond by saying that April has made me much happier and acting accordingly. I saw Mary Lou's smiling sister as I scanned the crowd and returned the smile. I appreciate you viewing. I hope it was enjoyable for you. So watch the upcoming videos and subscribe to my channel.